Hello and welcome to a new series that I am calling D&D Module Monday. As you can tell, this is quite a bit different than my typical content, Musings of an Idiot, which is sort of video essays about games. This is much more casual, almost sort of set up like a podcast, as opposed to Musings of an Idiot, where I do a lot of research, very heavily edited. Module Monday is not those things. It is basically comprised of me sitting down at my computer, having read through a module beforehand, and then bringing said module in front of you to sort of talk about my opinions, some of the history about it, and whether or not I think you should play it. Typically, for the most part, we will be talking about older modules, although we might touch on some newer ones, and I'm sure at some point we'll talk about box sets as well. But box sets take a much longer time to read through than individual modules. Really, the point of this entire series is to be much more casual than some of my other stuff. Musing of an Idiot is very fun to make. It is also very time-consuming to make between playing through the game and editing and whatnot. So this just kind of lets me get content done a lot faster and sort of more... just lets me bring you more content. It also lets me bring more D&D outside of games themselves, which is very fun because I really like a lot of these old modules. I think they're very fun to read through, and I think they're very fun even from a sort of historical standpoint. So really, again, this is all sort of set up to be like a podcast. There is video. I can show you my hand. See, there is video. It is not super important if you're not really interested in seeing the module itself. I will show you the module very shortly. You've already seen what module we're talking about in the title, but this is really set up to be more of a very casual sort of stream of consciousness, sort of thing. So yeah. I think that's pretty much all I had to say at the beginning here. I'm a little nervous, if you haven't noticed. Please bear with me. Obviously, I think I'll get better at this as time goes on. It's been a long time since I've made content like this, really going back to when I used to make Let's Plays. So I do think I'll get more into the swing of things as time goes on, but please don't hesitate to let me know what you think I should show. Are there certain modules you want me to talk about? Stuff like that. You'll also have to forgive my voice in this episode. It rained like absolute madness around where I live, and when it does, my voice usually sounds something like this, so it gets a little hoarse and whatnot with the humidity. So, anyway, getting into what we are here to discuss, the first module that we will be talking about is, of course, the Tomb of Horrors. Now, I wanted to do the Tomb of Horrors mainly because this is probably one of the most I guess legendary modules in the history of D&D, and it is legendary because it is obscenely, ridiculously difficult. Anyone that has run through this module, I'm sure can attest to just how difficult it is from a player standpoint, to the point that it has earned quite a bit of notoriety nowadays. There have been multiple videos made to this point. I believe XP to Level 3 had a great one, where he basically talked about what happened when he ran Tomb of Horrors for his friend. As you can imagine, it did not go very well. But really, I mean, it was written by the legend himself, Gary Gygax, and what was really unique about the Tomb of Horrors when it came out is that in these days, these early modules, I can actually flip it over here. One, to show you the back, but also too, if you see here, make sure you can see it. There you go. A lot of these modules, as you see here, this is all the stuff that was basically available for D&D at the time. Stuff like Slave Pits of the Undercity, Secret of the Slaver Stockade, stuff like that. Obviously, Village of Hamlet, that would eventually turn into and be included with Temple of Elemental Evil, which I do have, and I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. That's another thing I should point out. I'm going to try to keep all my modules authentic. I will probably have to buy reprints at some point, because there are certain modules I want to talk about that I don't own, and while I'm lucky enough to have a measure of disposable income, I am not Mr. Moneybags. So as much as I would hate to buy the reprints, because that means giving Wizards money, it will probably happen at some point. But what was different really about Tomb of Horrors is that it was very much a puzzle module. all these older modules, really, a lot of these older modules are very, very dungeon crawl based. And Tomb of Horrors was not. It was very much, it's really almost strictly a module. There's only like 2 or 3 combat encounters in this entire thing. And I find it most hysterical. If we get into it here, find it pretty funny. You can see it here on the first page here. It actually says, this is a thinking person's module, and if your group is a hack and slay gathering, they will be unhappy. I think the idea that any group would be unhappy with this module simply because it is puzzles, and not because everything within this book is completely nonsensical, is kind of hysterical. This is, for what it's worth, as far as I can tell, a 5th or 6th edition printing of this. I get all my printing information from a wonderful website known as the Assaeum. Very, very cool website that has tons of information about mainly old modules and their various printings, because a lot of these modules were printed multiple times. I will leave a link to them in the description. But as far as I can tell, this is a 5th or 6th printing, but I also can't be sure because, as you can see here, if I pull them out, I have 2 booklets. And as far as I'm aware, one booklet has the actual module itself, and the other one has illustrations. And as far as I can tell, you only got 2 booklets with like some of the earliest printings, so I don't know. This could very possibly, I suppose, be booklets from an earlier printing with the sleeve from a newer one. I suppose that's possible. It would seem somewhat unlikely to me. But as far as I'm aware, these newer printings were supposed to come in one book with the module itself and the illustrations combined, so it's a little odd in that respect. Anyway, the Tomb of Horrors is a high-level campaign. Another thing that was a bit unique, you were really supposed to have a very, very high-level sort of, buffed and ready and set to the gills party for this module to delve into the Tomb of Horrors, which is a crypt, to get the, obviously treasure, because why else are you running into a trip, from a lich by the name of Essaric. And I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's very... I'm bad with names. Anyone that's watched any of the Musings of an Idiot's... I've apologized in Musings of an Idiot's videos for how badly I pronounce things. But I believe it's Essaric, and basically, the reason this module is so notorious is because it is completely... I believe the word I used earlier was nonsensical. That might be a nice way to describe it. Now, the reason this module is so difficult is really twofold. For one, it was originally created in 1975 for a tournament called Origins 1. It actually says that on the front cover here. For a tournament by the name of Origins 1, which is still going on today, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that, tournament modules, you kind of have a bit more leeway, because no one really takes tournament play all that seriously. No one's bringing, no one really counts tournament play. Like, if you bring a character, it's not like, oh, my character died at a tournament, I can never play that character again. That's not really, at least not in my experience, what people do. So that was one thing. So, if you went and played at a tournament and you went and died, you wouldn't really be that upset. But also because Gary Gygax genuinely wanted to kill the characters of his players, mainly his son Ernie, and I believe it was Rob Kuntz, Robilar, and Tensor. He basically really wanted to kill their characters by his own admission, and made the Tomb of Horrors to be so excruciatingly difficult as to accomplish that task. I've probably tipped my hand quite a bit at this point as to what I actually think of this module as a module. It is, trust me, if anything you've read about this module on the internet is pretty much true. It is as difficult as, everyone has basically said at this point. I can actually show you the map here. Just move this around. I don't have a very big desk, if you're watching the video, if you've noticed. Don't have the biggest desk in the world. But if we look at the map here, this is the actual tomb, an outside look of the tomb here on this page. This is the map of the tomb itself. Now, these two entrances are just straight up fake. And this second one here is very, very liable to just kill you because it traps you and doesn't let you out. So you might die before you even actually get into this dungeon. That's how difficult it is. And within the first corridor, there are, I just count here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pit traps in the first corridor. So my biggest issue with this module, we can get into this now, is not necessarily that it's difficult, or not even that it's more so based around puzzles. I actually really like puzzles in D&D. I find them enjoyable. When they're well done, they're refreshing, they're a nice change of pace. What I dislike about this module is how completely unfair it is. It really is that bad. We can go through here. Like I said, I'm not going to just specifically read through the module because I don't even think I can do that. I imagine that would get me in some sort of trouble if I just sat here and read the module word for word. But I do have notes here, and they're on paper because I'm an old man. But if I look at my notes here, so yeah, I already pointed out that it's like, your friends won't like this if they, you know, if they like to hack and slash. Yeah, which again is just completely idiotic. Your friends aren't going to like this because it's unfair. So the first thing that really struck me throughout this whole adventure, and it happens at numerous points, there are multiple situations in which if you fail a saving throw, or if you step somewhere, or if you stick your hand into something, you just die. Usually without a saving throw, usually without any sort of recourse, you're just dead. I find that to be completely ridiculous, to put it nicely. Especially because this module is very, very sort of skinny on giving you hints and whatnot. It's supposed to be solved almost through trial and error. The problem with that is that all the trial and error is going to kill you. So, I'm not really sure how people were expected to get through this. Well, no, I could put it to rephrase that. People were not expected to get through this. I don't think this was ever supposed to be released as a module. I think Gygax wrote this to have some fun at a tournament, torturing people, and to kill his friends. I don't think this was ever supposed to actually be released, like, on a large scale. But I think TSR back in those days was willing to crank out just about anything that could make them money, and so this got pushed out. So, as we see here, we can take a look at, like, number 6 here. The face of the Green Devil. This is sort of what I'm talking about. The other fork in the path leads right up to an evil-appearing devil face set in mosaic at the corridor's end. You can show a graphic. The face has a huge O of a mouth. It is a dead block. The whole area radiates evil and magic if detected for. The mouth opening is similar to a fixed sphere of annihilation, but it is about 3 inches in diameter. Plenty of room for those who wish to leap in and be completely and forever destroyed. Now, in the case of that one, I guess I could kind of see it, why would you jump into the mouth of a devil? But the fact that, again, there are so many situations where you just die, is kind of really not cool. It's... all I could do is laugh, because let me tell you, when this is not the first time I've read through, the Tomb of Horrors, but as I was reading through it again for this, I guess it was worse than I remember it. Like anything else, you go back and you think about something, Tomb of Horrors wasn't actually that bad, was it? No, it was. It was. the crazier thing too is that there's not really a lot to be gained from this module. So not only are you liable to die, but outside of actually getting to the end, like, you don't really get all that much for your trouble along the way. And there are so many, if I go back to the map here, there are so many, just so many pitfalls and so many ways in which, like, false doors and false rooms and false, there's a false ending I should probably bring that. That is how ridiculous this module is. So it goes beyond the actual, sorry, I just hit the microphone stand. It goes beyond the actual, actually I have to point this out. Hang on. Let me find it. I believe it's number 16 or 17. Yeah, so there is a false crypt, which is room 18. Which is, again, I'm sorry, I have a small desk. Room 18, which is over here. Now, what this does is basically it sets up a fake ending. A straight up fake ending where you go in, you kill a fake lich, because again, the purpose of going through the Tomb of Horrors is to defeat a Serek. A Serek. And I'm on the wrong page. And it basically sets up here a false crypt where you get a really cool shining mace, and there is a fake lich which pretends to be a Serek, which after you strike him down, there is an illusion that is meant to trick your players into thinking that the place is collapsing. So obviously they're gonna leave after you kill the fake lich. If you see it here, it's a programmed illusion. And after they leave, you as the dungeon master, it gives you these instructions. I'm not messing with you. It gives you these instructions to pretend that the module's over. And if your friends are dumb enough to believe you, I'm not kidding. It basically says if your friends are dumb enough to believe you that this was actually the end of the module, then they should have been playing it in the first place, and you should just leave. Just let them leave and go do something else. This is the only time I've ever seen anything like this in any module for any edition. I have never seen any other module that tells you. I mean, sometimes modules will tell you to do a bit of acting. Sometimes it'll be like roll a few dice and, scribble something down. I've never seen a module that just says pretend it's over. And if your friends believe you, they're idiots, and make sure you tell them so. A little later on in room 21, there's some tapestry that you have to move the tapestry to progress onward. But if you rip the tapestry, you die. And also sometimes the room will shake, which will rip the tapestry basically automatically. It's like a 75% chance to rip the tapestry, and then you die. Yeah, here it is. If any character is holding the tapestry when the room starts to shake, 75% chance that the subject, will tear the thing and then will be turned into some sort of slime and then die. Again, these are just a few. The problem again with all of this is not that these puzzles are difficult, is that there is basically zero sort of hint or indication as to how you're actually supposed to get through them. It's trial and error, as I said earlier, but trial gets you killed. You're not allowed to actually have any error. Like, there's another one where you need to get a crown. There's a crown and a scepter, and it lets you move on. Now you have to, here we go. Yeah, so by the throne. If you basically, so the scepter has two parts. So it has a gold knob on one, a gold ball, as it describes it, and a silver knob on the other. And you need to touch these to various different things to unlock doors, and to let you wear the crown that comes with the scepter. Now, if you put the crown on, If you put the crown on and then touch the silver end of the crown, you die. But you need to... But if you touch, I believe... Hang on, let me make sure I'm right here. Yeah, if you use the golden end, you live, and it lets you take the crown off. Again, none of this is ever, like, alluded to. There's no notes you can find. There's even at one point, the Cavern of Gold and Silver Mist, there's a siren, who's actually like a good aligned siren, and can become a friend of the party, who, despite being in the Tomb of Horrors, of course, has no information about the Tomb of Horrors. A lot of the doors are very difficult to get open, usually requiring either some sort of magical intervention. There are a few that can be opened with force, but they're pretty few and far between. And it's just, all of this is so, it just makes so little sense. I actually talked to my father when I was reading through this one again, and he talked about when they ran it, when they were like kids, and he said it was torture. I mean, like, that there was, he said it was pretty much the only module that he ever came across that there was just nothing fun about. He said it was a great way, like, if you were a DM, to get your friends to hate you. If you wanted your friends to hate you, you invited them over and you ran Tomb of Horrors for them. And what's so interesting about this is that despite how hard this all is, I mean, here, huge pit filled with 200 spikes. That's nice. False and true door. The Pillared Throne Room. This is one of my favorites. The Pillared Throne Room 25, because it's leading up to the end. If you make it to the Pillared Throne Room, you've done well. You're getting pretty far. Also, by the way, there are pillars, again, all over this throne room. And if you touch any of them, you begin to levitate, as it describes just as a child's helium balloon, rising to the ceiling. And of course, in the ceiling, there is a devil face, like the one I described earlier, which will kill you. There's another one that teleports you away to like a room that you can't get out of and steals all your equipment. It's just... So again, you go into this room of pillars, and you say to your dungeon master, I touched one of the pillars, and now you're dead. Effectively. I mean, it's just... That probably could be used to sum up the entire module, and now you're dead. My father once also described it as taking a step and then poking around with a stick. Which is maybe how him and his friends got through it. When they were sort of playing this a million years ago. And it just, again, like I said, I have no problem with puzzles. I actually really like puzzles. And I have no problem with punishing puzzles. I think puzzles should be difficult. Sorry, I've been totally ignoring the camera for like the last 5 minutes. You probably didn't have much to look at. Sorry about that. Like I said, I will get better at this, I swear. But I have no problem with difficult puzzles. One of my favorite things about this entire dungeon is actually this length here. This stretch here. This is basically like a tilting floor that leads to molten lava. This is really cool. I like this. This is very, that's the funny thing. For as awful as all of these are put together in one experience, I actually like some of these traps. Individually, I like this lava trap wherein the floor starts to tilt and you've got to run out the other way, and you've got to do so quickly. I like the room to find the first key, which is number 19, down here. The different ways you have to sort of reach into the vat and figure out how to get the keys out of these vats of acid and whatnot. I really do enjoy, actually, some of these puzzles on their own. But the problem is when you put all of them into one place, and that is the entire premise of your dungeon, when your entire dungeon is basically that puzzle, basically. Think of it like, I think the best example I could come to is, I'm going to spoil something huge here, so go away for the next 30 seconds, but reminds me of when Percival killed Vex in the first season of Critical Role. A puzzle like that, yeah, it's great. It's punishing. It serves as a reminder to always keep your guard up and whatever. But if an entire dungeon was nothing but those puzzles, you would probably not want to play with that dungeon master any longer. And of course, like anything else, I mean, the reward at the end when you actually fight Acererak, which is funny, the fight against Acererak is ridiculously hard, because he can basically, if I can ever get there, he can basically, show it with this picture here, he can basically swallow the soul of your character, which again is another way to just instantly die. And, the reward for getting through all this is nice, 100,000 experience points. You get some additional, you do get a little bit of treasure. Like I said, in the Siren room, where I mentioned the Siren, you get a little bit of treasure. But you really don't get a lot for actually getting through this. As unlikely as I feel like it would be that you would ever get through it in the first place. I feel like the only chance that you would ever actually get through this would be if your dungeon master sort of made some concessions. And again, it's because it's just completely nonsensical. Even the strongest of strong characters is going to have a lot of trouble getting through this. Like it says for characters 10 to 14, I think characters even above that level would probably struggle. Because it's so difficult. And that is why people like it. People do like this module. It has become something of a cultural sort of reminder of what D&D used to be. It got a sequel in 98 called Return to the Tomb of Horrors. It has been updated for pretty much every edition. I know they updated it for 5th edition. I believe it was updated for 3rd edition as well. Return to the Tomb of Horrors came for 2nd edition, I believe. I don't know if it was ever redone for 4th edition, but who cares, because no one likes 4th edition. But generally, like, it's kind of ironic that because of how difficult it is sort of given it its notoriety, and why people remember it and whatnot, and why it has some staying power. It's also because of this difficulty that I would never recommend that you play this. I don't think you should ever play the Tomb of Horrors. Again, I think this was basically Gary Gygax having a laugh that then got released to the public. For everything I have talked about in the nearly half an hour to this point, there is way more that will get you killed. For the very few combat situations that there are, like I said, there's only like 2 or 3. There's a gargoyle lair. You can... there's a described as a mutated 4-armed gargoyle from temporal stasis. When you enter the room. And that's at spot 8. Where the hell is it? Oh, I was like, where the hell is 8? There's another one where like you fight some shields that come off the wall. It's just, there is so little enjoyment that could actually be found from this, because a lot of this is not like clever. Like these puzzles, these traps and whatnot, it's not like they're clever. They're just ridiculously difficult. And again, it's for that reason that I really don't think you should ever play this module. I think it's one of those things that at the time, people probably dug it because it was different. And it was. But nowadays, puzzles in D&D are pretty common. And as such, and the funny thing, oh my god, there's a fly! You probably saw that on camera. Jesus! Where the hell? Alright. I do think if you wanted to sort of take some of these puzzles on their own and actually adapt them for yourself, I think you could do that. I think the chamber, again, the shaking room, I actually think that's kind of cool, outside of the fact that, moving the tapestries that you have to move, but moving them in the wrong way kills you. Like, I think having a room that shakes one, I think that's all pretty cool. again, the sliding with the lava. There's the room that fills with blood. I really enjoy that room. There's the bug again! Get off my Tomb of Horrors! If that isn't a sign that you really shouldn't play this, there's a bug. There's a bug that refuses to get off my booklet. The Room of Blood, the Valves of Mithril. So yeah, this is another cool one where it's like the traditional, like you're filling up with water, and you have to figure out how to stop it. And it can actually be stopped. Basically, there's a hole in the wall, and it's like a wound, and you can close that wound by casting cure spells. That's really cool. I like that. And even if you don't do that, you can cast some arcane spells. You can see that here. I hope you can see that. You can cast some arcane spells to actually stop it. Like this to me, like this might actually be the coolest puzzle in the whole thing. And if I were a player and this was in a dungeon that hadn't killed me 17 times before I got here, I would probably think this is really cool. And I think that's kind of a shame because, again, I think there are some cool things that can be taken from this module, but I think as a whole, it is torture. Even these characters, like, you know, it gives you a character roster that it's like, you should maybe take these characters into the tomb with you. Again, I don't know how well some of these characters would even do. I don't know why they have thieves in here. You really don't have a whole lot of use for thieves, because unless I'm totally forgetting something, there really aren't any, like, doors to lockpick. Sorry about that. So I don't know why they would give you a thief to play as, because what would they do? Except die? Like, you know, it's... Again, I don't think this was ever supposed to be released, but I think TSR was like, hey, you worked on this, we can push it out there. I just hit the microphone, I'm so sorry. And whatnot. But one thing I will say that I really like about this, because again, I almost hate that I'm not a fan of this module, because it's a classic module. It's a classic. It is what I wanted to do for the first episode for a reason, because it has such a legacy and such notoriety around it. But I really just dislike, like, the amount of times I was scratching my head, in some of the notes I took, saying, how would you do that? How would you do this? Why is that like that? I really wish I could say, like, this is a module that you should take the time to convert or to play one of the conversions of, but it's really, really just not. Maybe if you wanted to bump up the rewards or adjust some of the traps, then maybe you could play it. But at that point, I think you'd just be better off making your own dungeon and sort of taking inspiration from some of these traps that are present. One thing I do love about this book, about this module, is that it comes with a bunch of really, really cool illustrations that you can show your players when something happens. So when you show up to a door or when you show up in a certain area, you can actually show it to them to sort of show what these things actually look like. What doors look like and what hallways look like. This, to me, is really, really cool, not to mention the artwork. It's just phenomenal. This here, number 6, is the... Make sure you can see it here. This is the devil head that, when you step into, you die. And so that's neat. This is the gargoyle. This is the gargoyle. This stuff is just super, super cool. And I also just like the fact that there is something you can actually show your players. That's really neat. Some of these different inscriptions on the walls, some of the different stuff you're liable to come across. Of course, I mean, this is room 10. No one's ever going to get... I mean, no one gets past, like, room 2. Like I said, you can die before you get in the goddamn place. But, this stuff is just really, really cool. The chest of snakes, that's at one point the different chests that you can loot. This is really neat. And they're really, really high quality. They're really well done. I'm really glad you may have noticed when I was flipping through this book of the actual module itself. This book's a little beat up in my copy. This book is actually in really nice condition, and I'm really happy about that. makes me feel good about wearing the gloves. I'm not wearing the gloves because I have any... well, I'm wearing the gloves mainly because I'm too hot for YouTube. And I'll get in trouble if I don't. That's completely untrue, by the way. I actually look like a Sarek, who I assume is on this... I assume that's him. That's his crown. I actually look very much like him. But yeah, these pictures almost make it worth it. Like, if you were questioning, like, do I want to go out and buy the Tomb of Horrors? This is the fake Lich. This is the VATS. These are the VATS for, getting the first key, the pit of a bunch of spikes. These are all really, really cool to me. I really enjoy looking at these. And I like what they bring sort of to the atmosphere, of the module as a whole. My favorite one, so there's a fake room, or fake door, excuse me. I believe it's at 12. There's a fake door. Yeah, trapped false door at number 12. So they're in this hallway here. This hallway here. And basically when you open the door, a spear juts out and stabs you. And they made a picture for it. Like, as if your friend describing to you what just happened wasn't enough. You can show them a picture of what you look like getting stabbed. Like, it's so silly, but I love it. And I will make no apologies for loving it. But yeah, I really like these pictures. They're really neat. Look at this stuff. This picture of the skull, of a Sarek skull, with the gems in his eyes and the diamonds in his teeth. I mean, this stuff is just super cool. So, I mean, if you wanted to get Tomb of Horrors is not a terribly expensive module. More information I get from the SIM, by the way. It's not a terribly expensive module, so even if you wanted to get an original, you wouldn't exactly be breaking the bank. But again, it would sit on your shelf. You would have no use for this in the modern day, and that's kind of the opinion that I came away with of it. I mean, it's the opinion I had beforehand, but I went in with a renewed sort of gonna make this video. This is not a module today that anyone, unfortunately, should ever play. I think it's a very neat piece of history, but Gary Gygax's torture session is not really suitable for consumption in 2023. It's neat, it's cool. I find it very cool that I'm lucky enough to own this, but it's not really, like, worthwhile. Maybe, I haven't looked at any of the updated versions. Maybe the updated versions are a little better. I would hope so. But man, oh man. The Tomb of Horrors. What a beast and horrible time overall. Horrible time again for everyone but the Dungeon Master. So yeah, it's basically that one puzzle or that one trap, but it's the entire dungeon. And that's just not fun. Can you tell I don't know how to end this episode? Yeah, I want to thank everyone if you've listened this far. Like I said, this is going to be much more of a sort of podcast format. I'm sure in the future I'll get better at this. It won't be as stream of consciousness. But I sort of just want to hit on some of my favorite parts about it, what I like, what I dislike, while listening to some chill music and just kind of hanging out. Again, if you have any modules that you want me to read through and hear my opinion of, please let me know. I have a bunch. Maybe I'll put a list together of the ones I have. That actually is probably a pretty decent idea. Of the ones I have, and if anything interests people, we can sort of look through it. But yeah, this is kind of the form these videos are going to take. Like I said, I'm not going to read the module verbatim because I can't. Again, I don't think I could do that. But it's just kind of more my opinion, and I found this very relaxing. I hope I know my voice is not particularly great to listen to, but I hope this brought some sort of relaxation, sort of reliving this module. And yeah, so I want to thank you for watching the first episode. Please let me know how this can be improved, this sort of pilot episode. I know for a fact, looking at it, the camera could probably be pulled out a bit. but that's fine. That's an easy fix. So thank you again. 40 minutes, that seems like a good place to stop. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next one.